call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I feel like 2024 is going to be magical.
Fish on First Live, presented to you by Burger and Hicks. Make sure to go check them out. All their information is down below. We are back on the first series here. About Marlins and Astros taking on a 3-game set. A lot to dive into for trade and we have a couple special guests with Eli Sussman.
Look good. So you guys can hear me nice and clear, right? So you need to rehab Kevin.
That's not me.
Getting
We're good?
getting some weird feedback whenever Kevin talks, right?
Yes.
You're not hearing it from me. It's our wonderful host that is.
We're good now?
Now we think we.
That's better, yeah.
All righty. Marlins Astros 3-game set presented to you by Burger and Hicks. We have Isaac Azut, Eli Sussman. We have very special guests. We have Chad Turner. We have Spencer Morris.
That's his real name. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was once, I believe, he wrote for Fish Stripe for a bit, and now big Houston Astros guy. And we have him to talk about some Astros and as well as a little bit MLB draft coming up. And but before that, let's start talking a little bit about what happened this weekend as the Marlins wrapped up a very interesting 6-game homestand. Get swept by the Red Sox, but welcome in the White Sox. They lose the first one, then come back and win the other two. Isaac, just what were your thoughts on this series? Which two worst teams in baseball going at it? I mean, can't get better than that.
I guess. Well, that was Isaac's turn, but I just found that hilarious.
No, yes. This was a series where I was really hoping that they'd be able to. This would be the one sweep. I think the last sweep they'd ever have for this season. But it was good to see them come back from behind and win in walk-off fashion, especially being Jake Berger against his former club. That was great to see. There was some very nice bullpen performances from Miami's back end, especially highlighted by Tanner Scott, of course, who was just elected to his first career All-Star game. So that's going to be very nice. We'll talk about that later. But aside from that, like you said, Kevin, it wasn't very inspiring baseball. Not great pitching matchups, not a lot of offense either way, except for the last game, which half of the runs came from the 3-run home run in the 9th. But overall, it was good to get a series win for Miami. They needed that one.
Yeah, not even that. It's just not even like the one good pitcher we were going to see this whole time, and Garrett Crochet looked real good. But yeah. Eli, you kind of talked to us about that last game. I mean, Marlins led at one point, then they, I think it was the bullpen that kind of ruined it for them. Not a very good game for the most part for Miami's pitching, but either way, they were able to get out of it with a win.
Yeah, they crawled very end, took advantage of I think what is far and away the worst bullpen in the this year in the White Sox. Even their talented guys, whenever there's a high leverage situation, they have been pissing those games away at record rates, and you finally saw that. So 6 runs in the final 3 innings alone, 4 runs, and they were down to their final out. And for people that didn't see the play, like Josh Bell gets ahead in the count 3-0, and then Michael Kopech runs it full again, and then he lifts his high, lazy fly ball that just keeps carrying to left field, and Tommy Pham kind of plays it awkwardly towards the wall. I think a lot of left fielders make that play, but the way that he fielded it, like it goes for a double, and he's not able to quite line it up correctly, and that extends the inning for one Berger. A couple batters later, finishes it off. So this was what it was billed to be, where close games against teams that I think are very evenly matched, that are severely flawed in several ways, and the rubber game is one that it's not one that the Marlins really won for themselves and pulled it into their own hands. It's ones that the White Sox really gave away right there, and the White Sox still have not won a road series all year.
They have not. Yeah,
it's astounding, absolutely astounding.
Chad, Brian Hoeing comes back. Probably not going to be a starter in this rotation, piggybacked by Rodri Munoz. Just what you see from Mr. Brian Hoeing in his first game back since, I believe, May.
Well, I think we get 4 innings out of him, and they'll probably be pretty solid. And he seems to be a good depth piece for us, and not injured anymore. So I'm probably expecting 4 innings, 2 runs, something like that.
Spencer, these aren't two very good teams, but what positives can you take away from maybe the Miami side of things? There are times where this bullpen really did look good and continues to show that some of these pieces can be trade assets, with one being Tanner Scott, who was recently announced as one of the Marlins representatives to the All-Star game. But you have Declan Cronin out there, Fauché. I mean, those are 2 other really good pieces. So just what positives can you take away from honestly what honestly felt like the toilet bowl?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I've watched a lot of bad baseball in my life, but I did not tune into Marlins White Sox. But yeah, like you said, trade deadline's coming up. If you're a bad team, it's probably a good idea to just clean house in your bullpen. So every time those guys go out, don't get hurt, and throw a clean inning, that's going to benefit you. I think they're positioned to probably pick up some decent prospects, especially if they trade Scott. Obviously he'd be in high demand, but Declan Cronin's been really good. The Astros dropped him in spring training for some reason. Could definitely have used him this year. So I'm sure they'll get calls on him too.
Alrighty. So moving on from that, let's talk a little bit about Tanner Scott himself. Picked up his 13th save of the season in that middle game. Isaac, he's elected to his first All-Star game. This guy, he may be a 2-pitch pitcher, maybe whatever it is, but man, is he a good reliever. Maybe one of the best in franchise history, honestly. He's had one of the best stretches for any Marlins reliever, I think, since he gave up that home run to Ozuna. I can't recall the exact date. It may have been April. He's only given up 2 earned runs. He's been really, really, really good. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, the dominant stretch goes back to August of last year when he became the closer. And we had a questionnaire where we say who was the most surprising or most pleasant surprise this year. And I know Tanner came off an incredible year last year, but he has been arguably 10 times better this year. He has been unstoppable since that home run that you mentioned, Kevin, that 3-run game-winning home run by Marcell Ozuna. I think that was maybe the 3rd series of the year. He has been lights out. He went on the stretch. He still has not given up multiple earned runs since that home run. It's actually been incredible how well he's performed. Obviously, it's whatever team acquires him, it's a 2-month rental for him. But to be Miami's also, I think he's a good personality to represent the team. And I just hope that he sticks with Miami through the break. I hope there's no trade before then. But this is, like I said, this is the best relief stretch in the history of the franchise, in my opinion.
Yeah. And if you want to zoom in really recently, he's also on a stretch last 5 games. He is not allowed to walk. So that to me is really the difference.
That's the biggest part.
Between him really just getting the job done versus actually being somebody that is highly coveted by other teams and somebody that is a very deserving all-star. Is when that was the difference last year, is when he totally cut out the walks. And this year he was on the other end of the spectrum at the start of the year. He had more walks than strikeouts in April. I don't know if people remember that. A whole month of your closer having more walks than strikeouts. And since then, that ratio is pretty excellent, where, what is it? Since the start of May, it's 3-1 strikeouts to walks. And so if you can absolutely live with that, if you're also unhittable to combine with that, then that's a recipe for being pretty amazing. So he's very well deserved that he's going to be there. And all he can do is fingers crossed that he actually appears in the game in a notable situation as well and gets that opportunity as well, because relievers are so fickle. You never, as amazing as he looks right now, this might be his only shot, the only year where everything really ties together and when he's a closer and gets that spotlight on him. So I hope he makes the absolute most of this opportunity, which is just 1 week from now, the All-Star game.
Since that home run to Ozuna on April 14th, he has allowed 2 earned runs in 30 innings pitched. He is basically allowing Martin Maldonado offense production against him, 429 OPS. 35 to 13 strikeout to walk ratio. He has been nothing short of incredible. I don't think we give this guy enough credit.
Yeah, and well deserved to earn that All-Star nod. could have named a couple other guys who maybe had some sort of a case, but really, when you look at Tanner Scott's numbers, and
could we?
I mean, Ryan Weathers had a case up until he got injured, in all fairness, but we'll talk about another guy who probably had a case soon. But staying on Tanner Scott, we saw the article from Craig Mish. This is a guy who is more than a lock to get moved by the Marlins. I mean, Isaac mentioned it. It'll be a 2-month rental, but you could put this guy in the most high leverage of situations, even if it's not a closer. We saw how they used him last year when they had David Robertson and Puck at the time, who was a closer. They used him in very high leverage situations where Skip mentioned those are moments we thought would be make or break moments in the game where they could win, where they could lose that game, and they would use Tanner Scott. Chad, just what do you think could be the return for someone like a Tanner Scott? It looks like the Marlins are trying to go very young from what Craig Mish has mentioned multiple times already, but what do you think a return could look like, and what teams maybe have stood out to you as options that the Marlins could look into to trade them?
I look back to the the Marlins when they traded for Urbina, and we gave up a very young Adrian Gonzalez. So I'm hoping for that kind of trade. Obviously, if we strike gold, that would be great. I'm hearing several teams mentioned: Seattle, LA, New York. I'm just not sure, but I think that with the number of teams still in the race, I have a feeling that somebody's going to give us a prospect that lands definitely in our top 10, on our top 30 list.
That's what I would hope. But is it fair to compare the David Robertson return last year, Hernandez and Vargas?
I was also thinking about that, and I mean, those were two young guys. Robertson was in the twilight of his career at 38. So I think we should get more for
right. They each had 2 months of service time. It was a little bit earlier that trade that was done, so they had a little bit more than, let's say, if Miami traded him on the 31st.
Sure.
And Robertson at the time of the trade last year, he was easily the best reliever available by far. Yeah. And I think Tanner you can make the argument for him as well. But I agree with you that that Tanner is showing. I think he could get a little bit of a better return. But just you see his FIP all the way up until May was like 6.6. So there's might be some teams that are a little bit hesitant in giving this guy. But what Eli mentioned, 0 walks in the last 5 games. He's really cleaned that up a bit. So I think that should alleviate any concerns about him.
And Spencer, is there any chance that we can rope the Astros into those trade conversations, or is Josh Hader too threatened by having somebody else, another left?
I think Josh Hader is mostly threatened by his own performance right now. But no, I mean, I can't see the Astros. They have resources to work with. Their farm has had a good year, so I do think they have more guys that like teams would actually want now than I would have said like over the offseason. But I just don't think they can dedicate any more resources to the bullpen this year. Like it's already been such a suck on like their payroll and everything, and their winning percentage for that matter. I feel like they're looking at 2 spots at the trade deadline, and it's in the rotation where they've had like 12 different injuries and need innings, and at first base, if they can maybe find a deal there. I'm not sure what the mid-range of the first base market is going to look like. Astros fans like to talk about Vladdy Jr. and Christian Walker. I don't really think that's happening as much as I would like to see it.
Yeah, that would be fun. I did see that Christian Walker, some sort of rumor about that today. But yeah, Kevin, you want to just transition to Jazz at this point? I think we have you back.
I think we may as well do that. Jazz, obviously, a couple of years of control left. I believe free agent in 2027. We saw he was the second most likely player to get traded by the Marlins, and Ken Rosenthal more than confirmed that today. He was very, very adamant that Jazz Chisholm would get traded, as adamant as he was, as he thought Luzardo would get traded up until he got injured. So
I can just play the clip. Yeah, I can play the clip for people right now, in case you didn't hear this already.
Can I just double down for a moment on Jazz? Why do you think he'll definitely be traded? Because there is still team control involved. Is it just because the Marlins are terrible, this is a good asset, and he can play multiple positions?
Bingo. He is a guy that certainly is something that you can trade to get something back for. And the Marlins have shown that they will trade players with control. Arias was one, of course. And then with Jazz, yeah, he can play center field, could play second base, I assume, for a team like the Mariners. A lot of people say, well, why not shortstop? He's not a shortstop. So that part of it is probably not going to happen. But he is a guy that is going to be interesting to a lot of teams. And the Marlins, anybody making money, anybody who can bring them something back is most likely going to go.
So, well, there it is. Jazz putting up arguably the best numbers since his All-Star season in 2022. He's on pace to play the most games of his career, about 140, 160 games. Isaac, definitely an interesting situation with Jazz. You could have for a couple more years, throughout the end of this season, and then for another full season, or you could cash in right now, where a team would love to use him either at second base. You could put him in a corner outfield spot. Ken mentioned the Seattle Mariners as an option. I mean, the Pirates could be a good option if they stay in they're still competitive. And obviously we know kind of what the Marlins are looking for here. Very young prospects. We saw the Luis Arias trade. Dylan Head was the centerpiece of that deal. So prospects like that. So what do you think this return could look like? What teams do you think could be interested in? And honestly, what is the likeliness that Jazz is now traded?
I'd probably give it a 65% chance. I know Ken is very adamant that he thinks he will, and even Craig Mish sort of confirmed that as well. But I think Eli did a really good dive into it, and you did as well, Kevin, earlier today, that it's just a very hard player to put a right value on. You don't know what to make of the defense in center field. It's been a while since he's played second base. Who knows if he can still do that well? And yes, he is putting together the best well-rounded offensive numbers of his career because he's hitting lefties finally, but at the same time his numbers against right-handed pitching is not as good as it has been in years past. So I genuinely could not tell you what a team like the Mariners would want to give up for Jazz. It's interesting. I don't know how the Marlins value him. We know the Marlins didn't value Luis Arias at all, or not at all, but they didn't value him as much as other teams did. So Jazz, we're gonna have to wait and see. I think you have to hope that a team gets desperate. I think the Braves make a lot of sense, obviously. I think the Mariners and the Pittsburgh Pirates, if they continue to play well and be better, I think that's a team that can make that happen.
Yeah, when I was working on that article about Jazz, Eli, one thing you noted to me before going into it was the lack of power. I mean, this guy is not projected to hit 20 home runs. He will not. I mean, maybe he will. Who knows? I mean, he'll have his opportunities, but he's at the moment, I believe, projected to just hit 19 home runs. Another year without a 2020 season. Just how much of that do you think could maybe play into the lack of trade interest, and as well now the reverse splits that Isaac was mentioning? He's hitting lefties really well, but now you're taking a little dip in production against right-handed pitching. It's not by much, to Jazz's case, but still, I mean, you're looking at reverse splits.
Right. I think I lean on the optimistic side in terms of his issue hitting lefties was a very tangible deficit in his game that he needed to work on, and he has worked on it, and the results are there. I feel like if you can, that naturally with any hitter, no matter what the small sample size will tell you, you're going to be even better against when you have the platoon advantage than the disadvantage. And even though the numbers look, as you noted, like really surprisingly mediocre against righties, I think that's something that I would trust his track record and his physical talent, that I think moving forward the rest of the season, it's reasonable to expect improvement right there. I don't think he suddenly forgot, and I don't think he's doing anything that makes him less effective against righties. So I think that is going to improve the rest of the year. But as you kind of both of you just referenced some of the things that I had mentioned myself about just the weird defensive situation that he is in, where there's a lot of conflicting views in terms of whether he's actually good at center field. And it has been more than 2 full years since he played in any game at second base. Like, I understand that he has a lot of experience there, but the Marlins' insistence of only using him in center field, I just don't think that benefits him for teams that are looking at him as a second baseman. How confident can they feel that he is? Like, how effective do they think he is as a second baseman when he just simply hasn't been there, when there's just nothing really to go on the last couple of years in that regard? Then there's the weird thing about the stolen bases, where even last year he was super efficient, and this year he's just making a lot more outs on the bases overall, and it doesn't really add up. But I mean, overall, the fact that he's been so available, that's a positive. And yet his injury history is so extensive, not just has got hurt a lot, but it's been so many different issues as well that I just don't think any team can realistically expect him to stay injury-free the next 2.5 years of club control. But I wanted to hear from Spencer as somebody that you're old enough that he was contributing to Fish Drives when Jazz was a prospect. So he remembers. Yeah. I'm curious how you think he has progressed, the player that he has turned into. How does that compare to the player you thought he was as a prospect like half a decade ago?
I mean, I think he's done pretty well. I mean, 2022, 2023, obviously he didn't play a lot of games, but he was really hitting for power. I definitely didn't expect him to be playing center field when he was a prospect. And I mean, considering the circumstances, he's been okay in center, I think, which is probably about as good as you could have hoped for. But he is hitting lefties better this year. But it's something that comes up a lot when you are looking at prospects, hitters, like specifically. There are guys who can hit for contact or power, but they can't do both at the same time. Like if they're going to hit for power, they kind of need to have a sellout approach. And I think that Jazz is one of those guys, and I think he's probably more valuable when he's doing that. So I'm not sure that I really like this year version of Jazz all that much, to be honest with you. I would take the guy, from the last 2 years who's on a 30-plus home run pace. Sure, he might strike out 30% of his plate appearances and only get on base like 310, 320. But he's impacting games much more frequently than he is if he's has a league average on base but doesn't hit for that much power. Or like you're talking about, the base running is really backslid this year. I don't really understand that. I feel like with, the pickoff rules and everything, he should really be impactful in that part of the game, and it just hasn't gone that way. I don't know if that's maybe related to the injury history, if he's a little more tentative or something. But I'll be honest, I don't really get really pushing to trade him right now. Because if I'm like a playoff team looking at 2024 Jazz Chisholm, I don't think I'm looking at the results he's put up and saying, like, that guy can really help me go win a division. I think he can help you a little bit. And I get like a team like Seattle, who is desperate for offense, could maybe talk themselves into it. But if I'm Miami, I'm like, let's try to get him through a healthy season, see if next year he can stay healthy and hit for power, and then you could really get something for him, is how I look at it.
Chad, if you had to put, if you had to make a bet right now, where do you think Jazz Chisholm ends up? Or maybe where he doesn't end up if he stays in Miami?
I mean, Seattle or Kansas City, and I do think we trade him. I think that Dane Myers deserves a longer look, and we have Victor Mesa Jr. that possibly could be a September call-up, even though he's not, tearing it up in AAA this year, but he's a prospect of the future. So I think we create some at-bats for those guys, and I think that we, maybe a similar to a Rise type haul, but maybe only 3 players instead of 4 is my prediction. Probably no big names, but some decent prospects there.
I feel it is good to open up space so that some of these young guys can get at bats, get more playing time. But with an asset like Jazz, I think Spencer made a good point. Just what good team is going to really see that as an upgrade? But still, I think guys like Victor Mesa Jr., Dane Myers, those aren't guys that you say, okay, we need to trade Jazz Chisholm Jr. so that way they get at bats. It's not exactly like you have Chris Bryant type prospect waiting. These guys, I think I have high hopes for Victor Mesa Jr., but at the same time, you really have to manage this one well because, like Ken Rosenthal noted, this is probably your most valuable asset, easily. So, you have to make sure this is the right deal.
Alrighty, Eli, I think we could go with the flip fish, and then we'll start previewing what this Astros series is looking like. And I know we had some injury updates as well.
I'm always surprised how quickly these shows fly. I did not think we were anywhere close to the middle of it. I wanted to say one more note just on the trade rumor front, that this is the time of year where people somebody's getting traded. My team wants that guy. Let me pull up MLB Pipeline and pick out which prospects we should trade away. And I just want to note that Pipeline still has Jacob Berry as the number 6 prospect in the Marlins organization. They still have Joe Mack at like number 20 something. They still have Kemp Alderman in the top 10. Shout out Kemp Alderman on hitting his first home run of the year today.
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is Pipeline does not update their stuff whatsoever until like after the draft or maybe even after the deadline. Baseball America, they updated theirs. I don't agree with them on everything, but if you're going to do that, I would recommend Baseball America subscription, and you're going to get a much more realistic alignment of these players that make sense in these deals. And that is what I will be looking at as over these next few weeks, and the rest of us put together these ideas about where potentially he could go and the specific prospects that could be coming back. All that coverage is coming over the next few weeks. But shame on you guys, Pipeline. The last couple of years, for whatever reason, they've gone to this model where they do not touch any of their lists until like August, for whatever reason, between the start of the season and August.
I think real quickly, I'll go to Spencer here. Spencer, just what are some prospects that are kind of eyeing that may be on the move if it's a contending team looking to trade away some prospects for, obviously a reliever or a big bat? Just who are some prospects you're looking at that could potentially be on the move overall in baseball?
I'm not sure that I can give you a good answer on that. I haven't really been following the trade rumor mill all that closely, to be honest with you, just because I don't expect the Astros to be that involved with it. So I've mostly just been watching games lately. If we're talking about a specific team, I could tell you who I would want to go get, but I think that's about all.
You can do that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't. Not only do they not update the rankings, they don't update the scouting grades. They still give Jacob Berry 50 grade
even look
power.
at the scouting grades; they're insane.
50 grade power for Jacob Berry. 50.
When I saw Baseball America's top list, I was pretty blown away as well. If I would suggest to you all Marlins fans to look at the Fish on First top 30 prospects. We take everything into account, and we're going to update it right after the draft as well. So you have a fresh new list, and then we'll update it right after the trade deadline. Eli, let's get going with the flip fish.
Yeah. So every series we pick a player who played at some point for both of these franchises, both the Marlins and their opponent during their career. This is a retired player right here. This is somebody we've used before because he played for several different teams, but never for like a Marlins Astros series. I have this as slightly harder than average, 5.5 out of 10. A very accomplished player, 40 WAR player for his career. The Marlins and Astros, a 303 career hitter. Yeah, a right fielder. It is not Carlos Lee, so I will help you with that because Isaac mentioned that on his own. This is I guess overall a little bit better. Carlos Lee was good, but I think this guy was even a little better during his career.
I don't think Carlos Lee was born in Atlanta.
That's true. Yes, he's very famously Panamanian, one of the most accomplished Panamanian hitters.
Shout out Romeo.
I forgot that.
We'll go to break, come back on the other side with the reveal. We'll talk a little bit more about the Astros with Spencer and a little bit, several topics to still get into on the show. So stick with us.
We have been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I thought it was Luis Gonzalez, but it's not.
I have a guess.
Go ahead.
So I'm not sure he played for the Marlins. Is it Steve Finley?
No.
He did not a Marlin?
Never.
Played for a lot of teams.
Yeah. It's a tricky one because Moises Alou, you would not think he was born in Atlanta, but his father was.
Yeah, his dad was in the big leagues. Guess it makes sense.
So that leads to there's a couple guys like that, a couple other Latin players that are also born in U.S. cities, even though they obviously were, even if they grew up out elsewhere in there, but really good player, just 1 year with Miami, and he was traded to Houston right after the original fire sale.
2,100 hits. Wow.
Yeah.
I would have gone with
Hardy.
Reggie Abercrombie and made it unguessable.
Oh. There we go. Look who said it. Our boy Alex Ferrer out there. One of the funniest on Marlins Twitter. Alrighty, Eli, I don't know if you really quickly just want to pull up the injury report. I know Christina Di Nicola's on site, so we have some clarity on, I guess, some injuries.
It's not a great report.
There wasn't really much in there. I'll as you wish, Mr. Host. I will take a quick screenshot and share it. There's nothing really new right here other than
Sanchez through a bullpen.
Yes. Well, I think that is his third bullpen for Sixto. I've not kept close counts, and I think that is. I don't know what his timeline is, but yes, Sixto, as far as I know, that is his third bullpen coming back from this shoulder thingy. He's still several weeks away from even being eligible to return as a reliever. I guess Josh Simpson for the first time through a bullpen session, coming off of his elbowish surgery thing. So he's kind of like on his normal track where he should be getting into game action in hopefully just a week and a half down in the minors on a rehab assignment, and we'll see what he looks like. He obviously has minor league options left, so not a guarantee to bump into the big league bullpen. Of course, it depends how many guys they trade away. There could be room for him pretty soon in August if all goes well with that. And Ryan Weathers is still not even throwing yet. He's still waiting to be evaluated to throw due to this little finger issue. It is going to end up keeping him out for half of the season, just in case people have that is not really registered with people. Ryan Weathers is going to miss like almost half of a season due to this little finger issue, and it's a bummer for everybody involved, but at least it is not career threatening in any way. It just is incredibly frustrating. And then with Otto Lopez, it's pretty clear that he is fine. Like he's going to be back really soon. It's just a question about whether they even think he needs a rehab assignment or not. So could be back as soon as this weekend in Cincinnati, at the very latest, immediately after the All-Star break.
Isaac, did you think this Ryan Weathers situation would be a 60-day IL worthy? It kind of seemed pretty simple at first, a quick IL stint and he's back, but it seems like it's a little more complicated than what it was originally.
You don't need to, but it's so whenever it's a finger thing, you've seen it with Edward Cabrera, you've seen it, I think, with Yuri as well. It started like that. It can sort of turn into something more, and I don't know if that's happened. I have no reason to believe so, but I think that's what you sort of worry about when you hear finger. You're changing mechanics, and then you really screwed something up. But hopefully he does start throwing this coming week, like Christina reported, and I'm hoping he can come back. Because at this point, I would be surprised if he gets 3 to 5 more starts this year at the major leagues. So I hope this comes back quick and he's back in September, because I think he's going to miss obviously all of July, half of August, and then I think he'll be close to coming back.
I heard Skip say that there was still some inflammation and swelling in that finger, hence the 60-day.
No. All right, let's take a quick look at this Astros team, which has kind of been a little bit underwhelming this season. I guess, Spencer, I think that's the best way to say it. Injuries obviously have been a huge factor in that, a lot of starting pitching injuries. But last time the Marlins did face the Astros, I believe it was in Houston, and the Marlins took 2 out of 3 against them. So just talk to us a little bit about the Astros this season. What's kind of been their struggles, and where do they currently stand as we are a couple of weeks away from the trade deadline?
Well, I mean, they've been great lately. Obviously, the start of the season was a total mess. I think kind of the story of it has just been that for a lot of the year, it seemed like not only did they have a lot of injuries to pitchers, their pitchers just have not pitched to their talent level for a lot of the year. Rinel Blanco has obviously been really good, which has sort of helped to stabilize them. Hunter Brown lately has been really good. Arrighetti has kind of settled in, and he's been pretty consistent. I forget exactly how many series they'd won in a row before the Twins most recently, which they dropped. But, I mean, you had Altuve and Alvarez out for part of that series, so I think you can kind of give them a pass on that one. It seems like the underperformance stuff is kind of in the rear view. I mean, Framber still really has not been the best version of himself. He hasn't been bad, but I certainly don't think you can rely on him as like a frontline starter right now. And the bullpen, the like season statistics don't look that bad, but it feels like it's been really bad. I don't know how many blown saves they've had, but it seems like a lot. Hader has let up, I think, like 27 home runs. He's been awful. Whatever's going on with like the pitching, coaching, catching, wherever the disconnect is happening, it is not helping Josh Hader find his form. Obviously, he looked this bad not that long ago when he was in Milwaukee. He got traded to San Diego and he figured it out. I think in the past, the Astros pitching, coaching, development, whatever you want to call it, was really top of the league, and they probably could have helped him figure this out a lot sooner. But it seems like they've lost a step in that area to me, just based on how the season has gone.
As a guy who, I guess, wants the Astros to succeed, how did you feel? Because obviously the Marlins, we never have to deal with something like that. But giving that amount of money to a relief pitcher, how did you feel about it when it happened?
I wouldn't give that much money to prime Mariano Rivera. I hated it. I hated it then. I hate it now. It was stupid.
Yeah. I saw how attractive Presley, Abreu, Hader. I see it. I saw the vision. But 90, what was it? $100 million for Josh Hader was
95.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. But what about Caleb Ort? Have you liked what you've seen from him in his brief stint with the Astros?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't see him getting into any high leverage spots, but they need bodies.
He's with their big league team. He's on the big league team.
He's on the active roster right now.
It's been a bit of a revolving door in the middle innings for sure.
I know he was up there for one plate appearance. How's your boy Jacob Amaya been doing? I know that was Isaac's best favorite prospect.
Yeah, I mean he can play. He's a really boring player to me. I mean, like most of his value comes from the fact that you can put him wherever you want on the infield, but he just doesn't hit. He doesn't hit the ball hard.
He stinks.
Yeah, I mean he's a bench type player at the major league level. I mean, they got him basically for free, so I mean, sure, go ahead and do it, but yeah.
The district, you don't miss Valente Belloso?
Listen, I was really glad to see him, go up and have that great start. I remember writing him up when he was in short season ball in the New York Penn League, which is no longer affiliated with Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I know.
In probably 2017, 2018, something like that. I didn't think he had like the power to make it to the big leagues, most likely, but yeah, I mean, short guy coming in with that like kind of weird arm angle, it's deceptive.
Yeah.
Adds a lot.
Talk to us a little bit about Astros starter Ronel Blanco, who has been really good. I mean, you kind of mentioned it. It's been a big reason why the Astros are kind of keeping pace. He's starting tonight against the Marlins, and he threw a no-hitter already this season. He's close to throwing another one. It's kind of been a weird season for him, too. He had the suspension there in the middle. So talk to us a little about what's made him so effective this season for Houston.
I think if like Dana Brown has really like a feather to put in his cap is Astros GM, it was moving Ronel Blanco to the rotation. Like he was a guy who took forever to get through the minor leagues. He was injured a lot when he was really young, and then he couldn't throw strikes. He started to become an interesting guy like once he got to the upper minors. He was missing a lot of bats, and then every winter he would go to the Dominican and just completely dominate everybody. One season, I think he had a 0 ERA and just like ridiculous numbers. And it was like, okay, this looks like a guy who can, maybe be a setup man. Dana Brown gets hired, watches him at spring training and says, we need to stretch him out. Like he's going to go to AAA and start. And at the time, he was still walking a lot of guys. And last year when they kind of tried him as a starter, it wasn't that pretty, but at age like 29, 30, he's really developed a lot with his command, and now it just sort of works. He's always been a guy who throws a lot of pitches. He was mostly a fastball slider guy. His changeup has really gotten a lot better. His curveball is a pretty good pitch too. He throws really hard. He's proven to be, very durable, throwing a lot of pitches. So that's been a move that kind of looked a little fishy when it was first announced, but it really worked out. And I mean, I think other than Hunter Brown lately, he's been kind of the guy on the staff this year, which is kind of hard to believe.
Alrighty, I think we could pull up the lineups, Eli, take a look at both sides because I believe the Astros are out or do not have Kyle Tucker for this series as he's on a 10-day IL. So big loss there, but still have Altuve, Bregman, Jordan, Yanyer Diaz, who's been looking really good, and then a bottom of the lineup, which is I guess a little bit interesting there. If you want to kind of take us through it, Spencer.
Well, you'll never hear me say anything bad about John Singleton. I'll tell you that much.
What a story!
I love John Singleton. I'm always defending him on Astros Twitter from the hordes of angry fans who don't like watching him play. Jake Myers has had a pretty good year. He's not the most consistent hitter. He swings and misses a lot, but he's hit for some good power this year. He's a really good center fielder, so I mean he's been valuable certainly. Mauricio Dubon, aka Jacob Amaya, if he was good. Not very exciting. Hits a lot of singles, plays everywhere. It's certainly been helpful to have him on the roster with the injuries they've gone through, including with having Tucker out right now. And then Chaz. It's been a little rough for Chaz lately. I'm going to be honest. Obviously, at times he's been a really good player for them, but I don't know if it's just not getting consistent playing time or what. But he hasn't really seemed to have it at the plate this year. But yeah, obviously right now they need some help in the outfield. Jordan has got hit in the knee a couple games ago, so him DHing makes sense. It's the next man up.
Alrighty, Eli. I think we could take a look at this Marlins lineup for a bit and chat just kind of maybe what stands out to you about the lineup tonight. No Dane Myers in there, but we still have Nick Gordon after his little scuffle the other day. Xavier Edwards at shortstop. Kind of your usual Marlins lineup, but I believe Josh Bell moved down one spot from the game on Sunday, and DLC back there as the DH.
Yeah, no real surprises here, and I don't see a very strong lineup, especially against the lefty in Game 2. Just your normal things. Obviously, I'm a big Xavier Edwards fan, so I'm hoping he has a big series, and yeah, I'm hoping Dane Myers gets a start.
What do you think
We'll
about
talk a
Edwards
little bit about
Chad?
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
What was that?
What do you think about Edwards playing shortstop?
Well, obviously, the knock on him in the last 2 years was he had a shoulder injury that his arm strength just didn't come back for a while, and I think he had one of the lowest average throwing velocities in the minors, and so it looked like he wasn't going to pan out at shortstop just because of that. But obviously, his shoulders healed, and I've seen him make some good throws, and so I'm really excited because I think he has really good instincts. I don't think he makes a lot of mistakes, and I think he's a 300 hitter. I think that will translate. Obviously, not a lot of power, but he's a gamer, I think.
Yeah,
I always liked him better than Amaya, even though Amaya had more power.
Yeah, I got something to show you guys. I ran a poll about Xavier Edwards. This was coming off of Sunday's game. Asked people where they think his batting average is going to end up this season. He is at 313 right now, but it's a long year, and players will adjust to you. So let's see what people said about where they think he's going to finish up.
I agree.
Only
with
about
that.
a quarter of people saying 300 or higher. About half between 275 and 299. Then 8% think below 250 right there. But I think that was a nice way to divide it up. Where, I don't think anybody thinks he's going to be higher than 313 at this point. But that's the type of game that he has to optimize his batting average, and he's making more contact this year than he had in his little sample in the big leagues in last year. So, and they're going to give him a big opportunity to play quite a bit right here. So we will see how that plays out. I will have this bookmarked, and I will check back on it later this year, and I will shame people if too many of them are off base on this one. I did want to also show this is a homecoming for Dane Myers, as he is a former Houston guy, former Astros fan, for people that are not aware of it, having grown up down there, and went to Rice University and back then, but not in the lineup today. He'll almost certainly be in there tomorrow against Framber, because facing a lefty, he's going to be in there against all lefties moving forward right there. And he'll be available off the bench tonight if they face Hader in the 9th inning. How poetic would that be? If down by like 1 run, top of the 9th inning, he pinch hits for Nick Fortes or somebody like that, and gets his revenge right there.
I like Jake Berger
against Josh Hader. That'd be swell.
Yeah, real quick with Edwards. I mean, if you look into what he did when his first stint with the Marlins this season, he's on an 8-game hitting streak. So he's been really good. A couple multiple 2-hit games. The last 2 have been 2-hit games, and he's going into a good environment for himself. Eli, I mean, this is a guy who was supposed to get a big shot. He's going to get it. He's playing shortstop every day. What have you liked about him so far in his return? Kind of doing what we've seen him do at AAA.
Yeah, I've not liked his shortstop defense as much as Chad has to this point. I'm seeing if I can get like his. I think it's too early to get like any sort of StatCast on his average throws at this point. It's still a little inconsistent, not just in terms of the strength, but it's the accuracy too. And even some plays that don't go as errors on him. It's the combination of both of those that make it really hard. And then when you compound that with also a couple like glove-related miscues as well, he just can't. He has such little margin for error to be an effective shortstop. He needs to be accurate with those soft throws that he makes, and he also needs to get his glove on absolutely everything that comes his way. There's like that weird play this past week where he slipped on something, or the field itself was slippery, and it somehow like got like right through his legs in that aspect. So when it comes to that, comes to even applying tags, every little thing, he needs to be great at those stuff. And he spoke about like working with Jody Reed on those things as a shortstop with the Marlins infield coach. So I'm optimistic that he can improve in some areas there. I think ultimately it's going to be Otto Lopez when he gets back soon. Like we'll see. It's going to be an interesting question about whether you simply flip-flop those two and have Otto try to play shortstop and Edwards at second base and still have them playing regularly, because Lopez doesn't have quite the same limitation with his arm. He's been so good at second base that he might be a little overqualified for it to this point in the year. I think that's going to be, as far as for interesting storylines, I guess is pretty low for a team like this, but I think that is an interesting storyline for the second half of the year in terms of between those two, which of them has the slightly better chance of actually being at shortstop on a regular basis between Otto and Edwards.
Isaac, something I wanted to get to you, because tomorrow we have Brian Hoeing on the mound, or they have Brian Hoeing on the mound, going up against.
We lost our. I can't even. What was he gonna ask? I have no idea.
Can't even guess what he was trying to set you up for.
But there is a question here
wait. But before we bring it back, let me see what LF's question for Spencer might be on this. Yeah. What if any are the Astro fans' thoughts on giving? Oh, he wants to revisit the Brian De La Cruz for Yimi Garcia.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fair. Probably wasn't a good trade. Yimi Garcia was pretty terrible, but they did win the World Series in 2022, so I don't really care. Also, I think like you add De La Cruz to the Astros roster, would they like to have him? Yes. Would he be worth like a full win more than whoever he would replace? No. So, I mean, I think it was kind of a fine move to make at that time.
Yeah, I would agree. Even seeing firsthand how how good and solid, I think that's the word, that De La Cruz has been. You know, watch him play every single day. He has his limitations defensively. He's got a hell of an arm. I think that's his best asset out in the outfield. He even tried to play a little bit of center field for Miami, a little bit. The power's been pretty consistent. He's been a solid player for a while. But
no, yeah, I always liked him. I mean, I would have preferred they traded somebody else. Certainly, he's a good player.
Yeah, but like you said, I don't think he is an upgrade, a huge upgrade over some of the outfielders the Astros have, and I don't know if he makes a postseason roster, to be honest, in 2022.
I mentioned Marlins pitching and my whole laptop crashed. But Isaac, I was going to ask you, Hoeing tomorrow. We saw Munoz kind of piggybacking there. Do you like that? because they need innings. This bullpen has been burnt.
Yeah.
There's just another way to put it. And the easiest way to do it is by having Hoeing start give you 3 or 4, maybe even 5, and then having Munoz kind of piggyback, taking you at least to the 7th, maybe even 8th inning.
Yeah, I do like it actually. And with Roddery Munoz, I was very intrigued. I saw his debut in Chicago. I was there, and just gets hit so hard. He gives up so much hard contact in the air that I don't think you can allow him to keep starting games. Not really fair for anyone. So yeah, Hoeing, they stretched him out when he was coming back from his injury, from his hamstring injury. They were stretching him out a bit. I think he should be able to go another 3 to 4, like you said. And yeah, I think Roddery is that sort of intriguing guy to see. He's not going to face the same guys twice, I don't think. Maybe just give him another 3 innings. And yeah, I don't really think Munoz should be, getting the lineup flipped over multiple times. So I do sort of like Roddery piggybacking Hoeing, and then you go to your guys in Fauché, Nardi, and Scott.
Not a great opportunity for him either here in Houston, where they have that short.
Yeah. Oh my God, they might give up like 4 home runs tomorrow.
And he's listed currently as a starter too, so we'll see what happens on that end. But Eli, you were going to say something real quick there.
Yeah, I was going to say that to your disappointment, they are both starting separate games in this series against the Astros. And in his last appearance, Munoz did not allow any home runs. Let that be known, that all he did was walk like 4 guys in 4 innings, but he did not allow any home runs during that piggyback appearance that he most recently made. So that was a pleasant surprise by his standards right there.
Oh, man.
I mean, you never know. Maybe they do go with Munoz there, and then you'll have a TBA situation, which we'll have to see who they use at that point. So Astros have a TBA for the last game.
It's going to be Jake Bloss.
Okay. Yeah. Jake who?
Jake Bloss. He's made 1 start in the majors so far, and he got hurt, but he had a rehab start. And just a couple hours ago, it was reported that he's going to start Thursday.
Drafted last year, huh?
Yeah, he's been pretty special this year. I mean, I liked him a lot coming into the season, but I didn't see major leagues.
Yeah, that's impressive, man. Drafted in the 3rd round of last year's draft, and here he is making a major league start. Yeah.
Well, really quickly, before we go into prediction time, I think it's worth quickly noting the draft. Spencer, you do a lot of work with that, so just talk to us a little bit about some of the guys that stand out to you this year. It's a very college hitting heavy draft. I think it's the best way to put it.
I love that. I always tell people if I was a GM, I would draft like 18 college hitters every year, probably. I just think it's the data shows that it's just the safest, and there's plenty of upside to be had in that bucket. There's also, with the amount of data that teams have on college ball now, I feel like it's really easy to pin those guys down. I don't have that data. It's not public. Some of it kind of leaks out into social media or through talking to the right people, if you can work that. There's definitely a lot of college bats I like this year too. I mean, I could spend a lot of time talking about kind of the guys at the very top and what I would do up there. But I mean, in terms of where the Marlins are picking, if it were me, I would be hoping for one of those Florida State guys. I really like Tibbs and Smith both a lot. I think there's probably a pretty good chance one of them makes it. I think Tibbs probably doesn't, but it's certainly not outside the realm of possibility. And I think Smith is a pretty good backup plan if that falls through. I think I would probably have him ranked kind of back-to-back in that range. So unless something crazy like, Nick Kurtz falling were to happen, I would probably I would be crossing my fingers for one of them.
What do you like about Cam Smith? Definitely the defense stands out above average on that end. And then obviously the bat's really good.
Yeah. Just really good athlete, power, arm strength, but also the kind of athleticism that I think helps him as a hitter for contact as well. Just flexibility, really fluid motions. I don't think there's that many guys in the draft who have a chance to have above average hit and power. I think even if you're talking about Charlie Condon, if you asked me to put grades on Charlie Condon, I might give him a 50 hit. Granted, like if you have a 50 hit with 70 plus power, that's really good. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I've said all year I would take Bazana number 1, is because I think he could be a 60-60, and he's probably the only guy I would say that about in the class. But Cam Smith, I think you can get to a 55 hit there. Just a really good athlete in the box.
Alrighty. I think, Eli, we could go right into predictions time. We have about 5 minutes left before we got to wrap up. So gives us some time to kind of explain our picks.
This is prediction time.
I don't want to like toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
Alrighty, let's do it.
Our prediction time leader is not actually in attendance for this one. That would be Daniel Rodriguez, still up there by 1. You see Chad is there. He's tied for 13th place, so he's tied with Kevin. Tied with Kevin to this point in the season. I'm a little bit above the fray, and then Isaac is even a little bit above me at this point. So, as usual, encourage people, have some fun with us, become a super sub, and you can make predictions with us throughout the entire season, either for or against the Marlins. And going against the Marlins, with the exception of this past weekend, going against the Marlins has been highly lucrative this year so far. Get the background up there, and then get our music going as well in the background. And we'll start off with Isaac.
Alrighty, well, I think that the Marlins, I'm going to shock everyone. The Marlins are going to lose 2 out of 3 in Houston, and I think that Framber Valdez, he's going to come back and have a really good start against the Marlins.
Okay, Kevin Barral.
Last time the Marlins were in Houston, they took 2 out of 3. I think they'll do the same exact thing. And I'm going to go with an Astro as my series MVP. I'm going to go with Yainer Diaz, their catcher. He's been really good, really productive, and he's been one of the best in baseball. So, yeah.
Okay, Chad, you know how this works. Give us your predictions.
Marlins lose the first 2 games. One against the lefty and then one against a really good pitcher. And I'm going with Alvarez as the hitter for the last game.
Spencer, I think you got the hang of this. Go ahead.
Yep. Astros sweep it. Series MVP. I'll go Jeremy Pena.
Nice.
God damn it. You took my exact prediction right there. I also have the Astros sweeping this one 3 in a row. I think this past weekend, as I explained, it's more of a reflection of the White Sox being inferior to the Marlins than it was about the Marlins doing anything in particular to grab that by the horns. I think this is still a really vulnerable team right now in a lot of different facets, unfortunately. So I think they fall short in all 3 games. Jeremy Pena, MVP. Really good offensive and defensive series from him these next 3 days in Houston. Okay.
All righty, we'll wrap it up here. We have one more stream on Friday as the Marlins will take on the Cincinnati Reds. That's right before the All-Star break. On Sunday, we have our stream as our MLB draft stream, the one that everyone looks forward to seeing our reactions and I guess getting those phenomenal screenshots that we've had from the last couple of years. So, Eli, I believe we're doing 8 p.m. for that stream, just to confirm. Obviously, Marlins are the 16th pick, so we don't want to be on for about 2 hours or so before that pick.
It's going to be the 3rd annual MLB draft live stream that we've done, and it's run a lot of people the previous couple of years, but the complication about last year, God darn it, they won most of their games, so they fell in the draft order all that way to 16, which means we didn't think it made sense to start it at the beginning of the draft, which is 7 p.m. Eastern, because that's an hour and a half until they even make the pick. We want to be on a lot for after to react to it. So we're going to start around 8, which should give us probably 30-ish minutes before they're on the clock. So about 8 p.m. to 9-ish p.m. on Sunday. That's a nice bonus stream. And we hope everybody that has joined us for those in the past comes back, and hopefully some new additions as well.
Yeah, and then obviously next year it shouldn't be too long until the Marlins make their picks. So we'll wrap it up here from Spencer, from Chatter, 2 great guests, Isaac, Eli, and myself. We'll see you guys on Friday. Peace out, and as always, go fish.